Hello, everyone, and welcome to another podcast here on the Echelon Cycling Podcast. This is, of course, where we delve into what's happened in the week gone by and look ahead to the week ahead, obviously. And as always, I'm joined by Patrick Blade of Outdo Cycling and also Mr. Kruger himself of the Cycling Dane. And I mean, it's the week after the Tour de France. So, how have you guys found this week so far?
I've had a nice decompression period, and people who have the video on will see that I actually have a microphone. And I'm back in Yorkshire and Scots and South Korea, so we're all over the place. And I don't know. It's been a nice chill week, I guess. Coming off of the tour, it's sort of been building up. Scott's just waving his South Korea flag. It's been a nice kind of like chill week. Pologne started this week, but I forgot that it's like not televised or something on Eurosport, I don't think. So that's great. But there's been San Sebastian, and we're all just kind of like, I don't know, world champs coming up, Vuelta coming up. But I think it's been quite good not having riding to completely focus on my life. It's allowed a nice other things to come into my life, believe it or not. I actually have other things to do. Wow, crazy.
Yeah, I feel bad for the Tour de France Femmes because I kind of zoned out during the week because I was just like fatigued. It's 3 weeks non-stop of cycling, and then there's just more cycling. But it was actually quite nice to just like lie on my couch and watch a race without having to like use my brain to like pick apart all the tactics.
Yeah, obviously, Vuelta is what we're going to focus on. Speaking of the Tour of Poland, Tour de Pologne, since we can't see any of it, Matej Mohoric has already picked up a victory as well. Almeida looks pretty good. And Patrick, I saw you put a video about whether or not you should put Joao Almeida in your team or something.
He was kind of expensive on Vela Games when he finished second, so maybe I'll be eating my own words. I don't really know. Amelia won the first sprint stage, but there's also chatter about how riders who are in Pologne will be leaving early to go to World Championships, like Kwiatkowski, Olav Koy, just to name two of them. I think have specifically stated that they are going to be leaving the race early to go to the World Championships, which, that does make sense considering that I think it's like Tour of Pologne finishes and World Champs is like 2 days after or something like that. So I guess it makes sense to give yourself a bit more traveling time to make sure you actually get to Glasgow in time. Can you imagine if you're just arriving and it's just raining? And it's just like, oh no. They're just like, I wish I would have stayed in Poland, but yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see who leaves and who'll be left on the final stage. Because I think it'll be a sprint, so Coy obviously won't be there to sprint, but it's a pretty decent sprint field in Pologne with Malia, Bennett, and Coy. So I am a bit good, but it's not televised because I would have quite liked to watch it.
Yeah, as one of Tour of Poland's biggest cheerleaders, it's a shame that we don't get to see it live. This is like, the third year in a row this has happened now where there's no live coverage. It should really be in sort of the UCI rulebook that like, if you want to be a World Tour race, it should be televised. But hey ho, this is how it is. But Matej Mohoric is not going to the World Championship, so he's got a bit of a bonus there. Because, like, for instance, Michał Kwiatkowski probably could have podiumed this race overall, but now that he's probably going to Glasgow, then that leaves the door open for Matej Mohoric potentially to get his first ever UCI World Tour stage race win, which is super cool for him. Almeida as well could have a really good shot at defending the title he won in 2021.
Did he not win the Benelux Tour? I'm sure he has.
Mohoric.
That's true. That's true. Benelux Tour has now been eradicated from history, so my bad.
What's it called now? Isn't it called like the Renawai? I don't even know what it's called now. Because it used to be the Unico Tour. Now it's the Benelux Tour. I swear it's got a different name this year.
You missed out the Bink Bank era. That was.
Gosh, sorry. I feel like it was the peak
dominated
years.
that. Yeah. At one time.
Oh, those were really good. I really like that race. I'm looking forward to it happening. It's just like a little bookending, kind of soft little classic sort of stage race.
It doesn't feel like a proper UCI World Tour stage race because like it's not. There aren't like hills or mountains involved.
Yeah. I think World Champs being in a different point this year is going to throw me off because I'm used to that being later. So I'm going to start being completely out of calibration for the next 2 months.
But I mean, talking about races that actually did happen this week, San Sebastian, Remco Evenepoel winning it for a third time. He was joined this time at the finishing line by Pello Bilbao, got rid of Vlasov. It looked like Ewan's prediction of Vlasov being his kryptonite once again was going to transpire, but yeah, Vlasov was a bit meh. So, what did you make of that? And I mean, Remco Evenepoel, is he kind of the favorite now for the Vuelta?
Vlasov was a bit meh. He finished third still.
Yeah, but like he didn't take the win.
Yeah, but this is like Sasha Vlasov. Come on.
He only peaks
Anyways,
for the key things.
so true, so true. He's looking good at least. It's definitely looking good for the Vuelta a España with the current trajectory. It's a bit like last year where he rides really well at San Sebastian, then jumps into the Vuelta. Looking at a similar time frame this year, the only thing in between is the World Championships, but it's quite a big objective if he can sort of continue this momentum forwards. But I mean, he didn't drop Pello Bilbao. That's one thing. Maybe if he dropped Pello Bilbao, that would have been more convincing. This is the first San Sebastian of the three that he's won that he had to actually sprint at the end of the day. And the previous two San Sebastians he won, he just sort of rode away and obliterated the field. Where this time he actually sort of had to really work for it and ride with other riders. It looked like the hardest one of the three that he's had to win, but he's Remco Evenepoel. I'm assuming that he's going to go into the Vuelta as one of, maybe not the favorite, given that Jonas Vingegaard is going to the Vuelta now, but he's definitely looking like one of the nail-ons for the podium.
I'm surprised that Bilbao didn't win the sprint, to be honest. I think that Bilbao has had a very fast sprint in the past. I'm not sure if this is the fatigue of the Tour coming in or whatever, but either I think the fatigue of the Tour has, blunted Bilbao a little bit, or Remco's improved his sprint. I think those are kind of like two options. I was actually quite surprised by the speed of Remco's sprint, and I think that maybe that could be something to help him. Oh god, it goes back to bonus seconds. It's like the Tour law over again. But I mean, Roglic has always been one to like just go sweep up bonus seconds all the time, whereas I think Remco's actually got a pretty decent kick on him. So yeah, maybe he could be a decent threat for the Vuelta if it comes down to just like a handful of seconds. But I doubt it will, considering the number of climbs in there. But yeah, like you say, I think it was a bit surprising that maybe Remco didn't drop Bilbao earlier, or basically just couldn't get rid of him, because no offense to Bilbao, but he was not hanging on to the top competitors in the Tour de France on the climbs. So you would expect Remco to have got rid of him. So maybe that's indicative of something, possibly, that Remco isn't as good as last year. I don't know. Or maybe Bilbao's just on another level.
I think it's just like the Tour legs that riders are coming out of the Tour de France and doing really well. Look at the results in Poland, for instance, where you're seeing guys that come out of the Tour de France and are really hitting the ground running in these races afterwards. I remember a couple of years back, I think it was 2022, Mathieu van der Poel did a interview where he said, I want to finish the Tour de France because people say your post Tour de France legs are phenomenal. And maybe we're seeing that here, that Bilbao, he did the Tour de France feeling better than Remco, but I mean, he was able to beat both Vlasov and Remco. So maybe it's the Tour de France legs coming through. Maybe that's a sign of Vingegaard being the strongest coming into the Vuelta a España.
It's also indicative probably of like world champs.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say, because like people usually do Vuelta before the World Championships, but now it is the Tour that's the Grand Tour before it. But do you think Remco Evenepoel is going to be hampered a bit with his Vuelta a España defense by trying to go for the World Championships? Because Jonas Vingegaard was not going, Roglic isn't going.
But then, is Remco winning the road race? Is that a legitimate possibility? Where you have that Belgian team where there's so many cars. Last year's course looked like it was going to suit a climber more than this year. This year it could definitely be more of a wild card course. Yes, Remco Evenepoel does well on these kind of profiles, but I think this is maybe more of a Wout van Aert kind of route. Maybe if Jasper Phillips is feeling good, he could hang on as well. I don't think this is quite as convincing of a route for Remco to really go for the rainbow jersey, but the time trial looks really, really good for Remco Evenepoel. So I think he has a really good shot of winning that time trial gold medal. I don't think the road race is quite sort of a surefire possibility, but definitely winning the rainbow jersey in Sterling next week could be on the cards. Well, 2 weeks.
Yeah, I think that, I don't know, part of me thinks that the number of corners in the circuit favours a solo rider in a way, because you can only corner as fast as, like, there's only a certain like terminal velocity of cornering speed, especially if maybe it's a little bit sketchy in the rain, if that does happen. I'm not really sure what the forecast is. I am not a weather person. So I think that maybe a solo rider could be a good option. But like you say, the Belgian, like just civil war basically that's going on within that team is just a whole kettle of fish to dissect. It's so hard to decide who's going to be. But I agree, like Wout van Aert, in theory, if it's just I just imagine it being just a really attritional race. Just all those corners, all that kind of like constant, just like whiplash effect coming out of the corner every time. If you're towards the back, you are effed pretty much. Like there's no way that you're going to win. So, what if Remco's at the front and Belgium just like let the wheel go and he just kind of shoots off? And it's like, who's going to chase him down at that point? Because World Championships is very renowned for having Group 2 strategy where they just, because of the scale of the what's on offer, people just, I don't know, lose all sense of tactical nous and just start to play for second and third place. And I feel like Remco really plays on those sorts of situations quite well.
Mm-hmm. But then Wout van Aert has the record here in Glasgow in terms of back in 2018. He rode a really strong race there. He's had maybe.
Are you drawing from a race 5 years ago? Remco didn't even ride in the
seniors. But that was when Wout was young.
No, and Remco won the European Juniors that year by like 10 minutes.
That wasn't in Glasgow.
I thought it was, wasn't it? Too? No, he won the Innsbruck. No, but he won the European title by quite a lot. Was that not in Glasgow? Was that?
But that wasn't in Glasgow.
Never mind then. Sorry, Remco.
It was only the senior races that were in Glasgow. Sorry. I think they were in like Brno or something.
I mean, you talk about Wout van Aert, you immediately talk to his, Siamese twin, that is Mathieu van der Poel. Those two, you can't separate them at the big events, can you? I think back to Flanders, especially when they basically just looked each other into the abyss and they finished something like 7th or 8th or something like that. I feel like they each have so many more cards to play. Actually, in a way, you have like Remco, Dylan van Baarle, Wout van der Poel, and then you have Philipsen and Coy, and they each have like a sort of a like for like. I would say that Dylan van Baarle isn't as good as Evenepoel, but they have similar cards to play. I'm not really sure what my point is. I'm just saying that I feel like the Dutch and the Belgians
who's going to win the world? Is that the point? Who's going to win the world?
I'm going to go with Evenepoel. I think he gets both. Bold, but I'll go with Evenepoel. I feel like I've made a case, so I feel like it would be rude of me to not go with it.
I really don't know.
Do you think it's going to be Belgium then?
The thing is, it makes sense given the current trends in global cycling to pick one of these Galacticos. In that case, Wout, Mathieu, or Evenepoel. But what if they all like mark each other out and then someone else comes through? I still think like Dylan van Baarle is the kind of guy to like, if he won this, I wouldn't be shocked. I don't know. I'm finding it really, really hard to predict the road race this year, to be honest. I think it's going to be a really interesting race.
I think you're absolutely right. It's so unpredictable. Like I'm literally thinking about who I'm going with Evenepoel because I feel like it's the safest, but I feel like you could throw 10 riders' names in there, and especially, like we say, considering the internal sort of tactics within teams, and when you come down to it, and you've only got leaders at the end, a solo rider from, I don't know, let's just throw like even somebody like a Christophe Laporte or something like that who finished on the podium last year, like he could very well play off the tactics off of the other teams, and then he's very fast in the finish, and I feel like he looks incredible during the Tour de France. Was Laporte, he was probably one of the better versions. Yes, he didn't win a stage, but he was in very good shape. And I feel like Laporte as well is another name to throw in there. It's all up in the air, isn't it? It's just so chaotic. I feel like the rain does play a part because that will, of course, bring Pedersen into the play. If it rains, that's the way that Pedersen works.
He might be soft now because he lives in Switzerland. But I mean, Switzerland as well.
Oh dear.
Mark Hirschi, Schmidt.
Oh yes, Hirschi.
Yeah.
He won a race. Goated Hirschi's back. Of course, I mean, I keep thinking about Schmidt. Mara Schmidt almost finished on the podium last year, but then it was him, Skelmoser, and somebody else. I can't remember, but they just got absorbed.
Somebody else, Alexei Lutsenko.
Oh, was it Lutsenko? Oh gosh, sorry. I'm sorry, Lutsenko. Don't hurt me.
Yeah, he's not down for world right now. Peter Sagan, no. Airtray are bringing basically their entire golden generation.
Who have GB got?
Yeah, I mean, GB, Fred Wright.
Oh, sorry, no, the winner will be Sam Watson. Sam
Okay.
Watson or Connor Swift, because they're from Yorkshire, will obviously de facto win. There we go. Forget what I said about Evenepoel.
I would say Denmark though, because like Kasper Askren, Skjelmose and Mads Pedersen, Søren Kragh Andersen, who was not great. Magnus
Yeah.
Kort, not great as well in the
Michael
tour.
Matthews as well.
Yeah, Michael Matthews. Michael Matthews pulls out
like
results at the World Championships.
We're talking about
No, we
way
don't.
too much. We
No, I don't think we do.
About who?
Michael Matthews.
Even like,
oh shoot, he was third last year.
Yeah, Michael Matthews is actually he's not bad.
No, definitely
Well,
not. No.
is Ben Healy going to be here?
Yeah.
Thoughts? I don't think he'll win, but
no, I'm not sure if his cornering's good enough. I think you got to be a good bike handler to win here.
Hmm.
The amount of corners there are, you got to be able to save energy through all those corners. Because if you're having to accelerate just a little bit too much, you're going to be like nulling your legs when they actually need to go up Montreux Street, more than likely.
even like Norway, I mean, Kristoff's kind of past it now, but like that's a super strong team of Rasmus Tiller and Søren Vadenschold as well. And they have that team cohesion because it's essentially just Uno X.
Do you think it's going to be a cyclocross winner this year because of the corners? I mean, we all want to see Mathieu van der Poel or Wout van Aert, except Ewan win the rainbow bands.
I feel like
no, I want to see.
You want to see Wout. You want to see Wout win the World Championships.
But the thing is, it would make sense. Like a world champion should be one of the best riders in the world, and Wout is one of the best riders in the world.
That's very true, but I would prefer to see Mathieu because we all talk about the kind of the mythical nature of the Van der Poel heritage and how that would be a very cool thing because he hasn't been a road world champion, has he? Well, I know he's been like under 23, but like elite level.
Junior.
His record is pretty naff in elite level world championships. I mean, of course, there's been things. 2019, he didn't eat. I can't remember what happened in 2020. What was that? Was that Imola?
Yeah, that was
So
Imola.
I guess that was probably a bit too hard for him. 2020, he and Wout looked themselves into the abyss. And then last year, he was woken up by teenage girls in like his hotel room. They kept on knocking on his door or something like that. And then he had a DNF race, basically. Maybe this is finally the year that Mathieu van der Poel might actually have things go correctly. But I do feel like you're right, Scott. Maybe the cyclocrossers will have an advantage in terms of bike handling, but I feel like the sprinters as well, like sprinters in general, like a Pedersen or a Laporte, also have probably some of the best bike handling going. So I'll probably say that they are also very strong candidates.
Where's
I don't know what
Pidcock?
Pidcock.
He's
just doing mountain bike. Yeah, he's not doing the road race. And poor behaviour. I probably wouldn't. I'm not sure how much chance I'd give him anyway, to be honest.
The road is pretty.
Oh yeah, you've seen the route. Yeah, you've been up to Glasgow recently.
Yeah, like last month. I like had a look around. And I think if it's the same one as last time, it goes like through Calvin Grove, like the park in the city. Bumpy. It's not exactly like the best paved course, and Wout van Aert even said himself like the other month that it's like the paving is really, really bad. So that also could benefit the cyclocrosses towards the end. But I mean, the finale is going to be on like pretty like it's like city center roads, but there are certain parts of the course where it's just going to be like a mess. It's particularly if it's rainy as well. With like, there's been like potholes filled in. There's like drain covers, lots of markings on the road. It'll be a tough one.
Like you say, not the most kind of, it's not Swiss roads, let's put it that way.
But anyways, there's one of our podcast favorites. He was in the news for the wrong reasons this time, and there's another rider as well. Ewan, what are the two riders who have been getting some attention from the UCI?
Well, to begin with, let's go with Miguel Angel Lopez. This decision came out first of all. The UCI have suspended Miguel Angel Lopez, I believe, based on actions last year. It's quite confusing. I feel like I've missed out a couple of chapters here. But it looks like Miguel Angel Lopez's return to the World Tour has been majorly derailed. But more importantly, in the here and now, it means that he won't be able to race the World Championships. The other one is Philip Matsiak. If you remember a couple of months back at the Ronde van Vlaanderen, he caused a big crash where he sort of went off the road, got pinged back into the peloton, caused a big sort of pile-up. The UCI have now decided to place a suspension, which I believe is 1 month, which also means that Matsiak will not be able to compete in the World Championships. Maybe this is just the UCI trying to like respond to incidents, but both seem fairly sort of I mean, Marzia, that crash was back in April, and for Lopez, these potential anti-doping violations were last year. Feels like they've acted a little bit late on these issues, and they've they've released a statement and the consequences thereof just in time for the World Championships in August. So a strange one nonetheless. Fans of Superman Lopez, we know you're out there. It seems like it's just going to be another couple more months of hiding in Colombia, winning time trials.
Yeah, that's true. Obviously, Miguel Angel Lopez was going to be the favorite for the World Time Trial Championships. I reckon maybe Remco Evenepoel has like told the UCI to ban him. He's too much of a threat, guys. We need to stop Superman Lopez coming back because he's actually kind of a beast on a TT bike now. But yeah, I think you're right. It's a bit weird that they've just kind of acted on this so late.
He's won more TTs than Filip Pogana this year.
Exactly. Lopez is on the rise.
Yeah, but I mean, bans for crashes, obviously, De La Groenewegen, it's not traditionally something's done, but yeah, it was pretty reckless, the one in April.
But then why did this happen now? When like back in April,
agree completely.
We're calling for like suspension. Like it feels a bit strange how it's taken however many months, maybe 3-4 months now to get a sort of suspension or ban in place. It doesn't really not suspension, not really a ban in place for Marzia. Feel bad for him because he probably thought he could carry on with the season. He said sorry and sort of faced the repercussions in the media, but now to face that suspension right in the middle of the season, it's pretty rough.
Yeah, he would have got away with it too if it weren't for that meddling UCI.
It's so true.
It's
so true.
So odd. It's kind of like, oh yeah, so let's just say for some random hypothetical scenario here, some big name in the Tour de France. Let's just say I don't know. Let's say Philipsen, right? Let's say the UCI, they're like, oh, actually, what you did with Ancon there was really bad. And then, I don't know, we could get to February next year, and he's about to start Kern, Brussels, Kern, or something. Like, oh no, now you're banned for what you did back in the Tour de France. It's something really weird. Like, you need to kind of act on this a little bit sooner, because what's the point in punishing the rider much later on? Like, surely it would be better to, I don't know. I don't understand I don't know. Maybe they've got an admin shortage at the UCI at the moment. I don't know. Maybe there's a reason behind it. Maybe it takes a long time to fill out paperwork. I don't really know. Maybe they've got an intern who's a bit slow. There's so many reasons why the UCI could be a bit slow with their paperwork right now. Who knows?
Anyways, finishing on something Patrick thought would be a good idea. Tadej Pogacar is not going to Vuelta España. Should he be going to the Vuelta España, given that they're sending Juan Ayuso, Almeida, given that Jonas Vingegaard is going, and Roglic, etc., Remco? It would be an absolutely crazy fan favorite World Tour if that was to happen. But should he go, or is it best not to go and focus on the Italian autumn classics or whatever he does?
I just thought, it would be interesting to talk about, because obviously the alternative is he goes and does the Italian autumn scene, which, don't get me wrong, I love the Italian autumn scene, but from a perspective of prestige, would it not make more sense for him to go to La Vuelta? Now that he's got through the Tour, yes, I know he didn't win, but he will have probably come out of that stronger. There's a decent rest period between the Tour and the Vuelta. Or is it kind of like a case of, is there any point in us going if Jonas is probably going to beat us again, basically? Because he beat them at the Tour, so likelihood is he'll beat them at the Vuelta. So therefore, it's like, oh, we're basically just going for second place. And let's face it, Tadej is a person who likes to win. He is a winner. So therefore, going somewhere for second place doesn't make sense. So I think it makes sense for him to not go, because he would essentially just be taking a place away. Like, it makes more sense to allow Almeida and Ayuso to improve themselves as a Grand Tour rider or riders, rather than Tadej just coming in and just being like, yeah, let's have this three-prong Movistar attack, but we're still not going to win. Like, he may as well just go and do something else, go into the off-season or whatever, and prepare for next year.
Yeah, I mean, these post-Tour de France legs could help Pogacar, but it seems like he's sort of winding down almost post-Tour de France. He was supposed to go to this strange event. What's it called? Like the Championnat des Grimpeurs, like the Climbers Championships. It was won by Felix Gauchard in the end, but it was like a mountain. It was like a hill climb thing up a mountain that was cobblestones. Pretty crazy, but he was supposed to go there, and then he pulled out of the event like a week ago after the Tour de France. He said that like the likelihood of him going to the Vuelta now, well, the likelihood of him not going is 90%. There's still 10% chance, but I don't think he'll go. I think he'll try to win Lombardia and all those other races as well. I think there's more for him to lose to go to the Vuelta, where I feel like the end of his Tour de France, he didn't look sort of amazing, like tip-top Pogacar. If this were like 2021, Pogacar, I would say, yeah, 100% go straight into the Vuelta. But I just don't think we're seeing tip-top form Pogacar. And they also have Ayuso and Almeida to really anchor down that squad. They've got other riders to give objectives to. So, I don't know. I'm quite content with Pogacar not going, to be honest.
And let's face it, like, he will smash up those Italian races, and we bash on about this, but the UAE want to be the top tour, the top team in the world tour, and going and smashing up those Italian one-day races does net quite a few UCI points. So they can have Ayuso and Almeida reining some in, probably not as much as Jumbo-Visma in the Vuelta, but then they can supplement that with increased kind of influx from Lombardia, and Valle Vallecine and whatever else they want to do over there. So I also feel like that Pogacar kind of prefers those kind of races. I think he enjoys doing like dabbling in one day races. Obviously it's not something which Jonas really likes to do, but I think Tadej likes the racing kind of tactical nous that comes with the one day racing. So I think it's refreshing for him rather than doing a grand tour. But do you reckon there'll be a future where, like we've seen in the past with other like Froome or whatever, where they go and do Tour Vuelta? Do you reckon that's going to be something we see Pogacar do more in the future? Or do you reckon that, like we've talked about him going to the Giro and stuff as well? I don't really know what I think is going to happen in the future. Is he just going to kind of change up his calendar every season and just kind of do like, oh, this year I'm doing cobbles and classics, and next year I'm not, and I'm focusing on Vuelta later on?
One Grand Tour season, I think. He's never done two, has he?
No, he's never done two.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe if he does the Giro Vuelta one year. I've always said, like, once Pogacar gets his third Tour de France, or if he gets his third Tour de France, you could probably say nowadays, then he'd probably become more fluid in that Grand Tour schedule of, like, trying to target the other ones. But, yeah, I mean, the Tour de France is just so tough now. It was back in 2016, but, like, it feels like a very different beast now. And riding the Tour de France, then going straight into the Vuelta, it just seems like a lot, to be honest. Even like looking at recent records, Evenepoel didn't ride the Tour de France last year. Year before, Roglic didn't finish the Tour de France. Year before, the COVID year doesn't really count. Then 2019, Roglic won the Vuelta, didn't ride the Tour de France. 2018, Yates won the Vuelta, didn't ride the Tour de France. Froome is the last person who did both, apart from the COVID year with Roglic. Maybe it's just too hard to do, but I think Vingegaard could do it this year. Maybe he'll set a precedent and other riders will now try to jump on that trend.
Yeah, I'll be intrigued to see how especially Ayuso stacks up against Vingegaard this year. I think it's going to be it's going to be a grand tour of discovery in terms of matchups between riders, I think. But there'll always be the caveat of, if Vingegaard doesn't do well, it'll always be, oh, it's because he's done the tour and he's fatigued and stuff. But I'm still quite intrigued to see how UAE's next kind of big prospect in Ayuso. I know there's Almeida, but he just about finished on the podium of Giro this year behind G and Roglic, and that doesn't even include Evenepoel leaving. Like, no offense to Almeida, I just kind of prefer Ayuso's chances. I'm especially intrigued to see how Ayuso stacks up against Jonas in the Vuelta in terms of his ability to also work with Pogacar in the future to provide a 1-2 threat, because I do feel like that could change things in the future with Jumbo. Obviously, Roglic will start to decline, but Ayuso's going to increase up, and that could certainly change the tide of of dominance.
Ayuso was in a race the other day as well. He was like soloing. Well, it was him and Lazcano up in front, and he crashed in the final kilometer coming down on a drain cover. He looked pretty bashed up at the end, but seems like he's okay. But hopefully he can bounce back in full fitness for the Vuelta a España. Should be really interesting. He's definitely made a step up this year, because last year felt like, I mean, we knew the name, but he really sort of came of age in the Vuelta, where this year there's more sort of signs of improvement towards something great in this year's Vuelta.
Well, anyways, finishing with Rider of the Week, and obviously it hasn't been the most action-packed week, but who's been your Rider of the Week?
I am going to go with. I'm actually going to go with Ayuso, I think, because it was, yeah, like you say, he slipped on that track. I can't remember what the name of the race was, but he was going to win it, but then he crashed. But he still finished in third place, and then he also finished, I think it was just outside the top 10 in San Sebastian as well. So I think that, yeah, I was quite impressed that he actually still held on for a podium place despite the fact that he crashed. And Lazcano crashed as well. So it was a bit comedic. I don't want to say it's like funny because people were crashing, but Ayuso crashed, and then Lazcano crashed. And it's like, if you just looked at the results on paper, you wouldn't have actually understood the full tale of what happened in the race. So I'd recommend you go look up, viewers, what happened there, because if you're like, oh, Hershey's actually on, I'm not saying that Hershey's bad. Hershey's, of course, coming back. He is the GOAT. But if you just look at the results, it's not the whole story.
My Rider of the Week is going to be Lotte Kopecky of SD Works. She had an amazing Tour de France Femmes, winning the first stage, wearing the yellow jersey up until the mountain stage on stage, the Tourmalet stage. I can't remember what number it was. And she rode the Tourmalet incredibly well. This is a rider that was sort of a sprinter, could climb okay, could ride the classics well a couple of years back, but now she's like really, really improved at climbing. And you can see that here. A second place overall as well, with an incredible time trial on the final stage around Po. Lotte Kopecky, people keep saying she's like Wout van Aert, but I think she's like the improved version of Wout van Aert in a way. Top 5 on Tourmalet, second place overall, winning the green jersey, podiuming sprint stages. She could have been team leader elsewhere, but she worked really, really well with Demi Vollering, who ended up winning the race overall. So it's got to be Lotte Kopecky for me.
I mean, I could pick Demi Vollering, but yeah, because she won the Tour de France Femmes. But I will go with podcast favorite Alexei Lutsenko because he won a race. That's
a good enough reason.
It was the Circuit de Gexo. Spanish, not there, but in front of...
that should be a World Tour race.
But anyways, that's it for our, this week's episode of the Echelon Cycling Podcast. Of course, make sure to check out all the different channels. Patrick's channel, I'll Do Cycling, us over on the Cycling Dane, and why not check out the Echelon Cycling Podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. But comment down below what you've thought of anything we've said. As always, we love the chat afterwards, and hit the like button, and we will see you around.